Yo, what is up? Welcome to the Unwritten Podcast with me, Thomas Malpass, where every week I have a guest and every week I do a solo episode in the hopes that I inspire you and motivate you to live a life on purpose, live your passions, and ultimately live a life of peace and joy and happiness. To anybody new here, welcome to the Unwritten family. And if you are not new, thank you for coming on and listening again. Today I have a special guest that is a master of communication. Today I have Christine Michaelis, the founder of the creative startup academy and Let's Talk. Christine is an accomplished author and speaker with over 2 decades of experience in the communication industry and more than a decade of running her own businesses. Her hands-on approach has empowered hundreds of individuals to create successful ventures and businesses on their own, and has also led to impact trainings and enterprise companies. Christine is passionate about using communication to make a more meaningful impact in the world and everyone around her, on people's lives and their businesses. If you are an entrepreneur, this is for you. If you're somebody looking to learn more about communication and leadership, this is for you. Join us as we explore her journey, insights on leadership, personal development, and why it's important to be authentic and how to develop as a self-leader and to lead by example. Before we get into the episode, subscribe wherever you are, like, comment, share, whatever you feel is best. But subscribing would be best for me. See you in the episode. Peace. Welcome to the Unwritten Podcast with your host, Thomas Malpass, where we are on a mission to help the world find more purpose, passion, and peace in their everyday lives. Through deep conversations and connection, tune in because we are all on this journey of life together. That's fine. Most of my podcasts don't last that long.
Yeah, I saw.
Usually about an hour to an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's rare that happens.
Okay, awesome.
But how are you doing?
I'm good. Yeah, all good. Nothing to complain, which is good.
Where are you originally from?
I'm from Germany, from Berlin.
Berlin?
Yeah.
How's that?
Super big city, a bit noisy, a bit too much of everything. That's why I left.
That's why you moved to Italy?
Well, I actually moved away and moved to the UK, and then I moved to Sweden, and now I'm here in Italy for the past 4 years. Yeah, so about 14 years ago, I left Germany.
What part of Italy?
I'm in the north, so most people will know Milan, which is maybe the closest city.
I heard of that one.
Yeah, so it's the closest city to where I live, but I won't bother say where I live because it's small. One knows it.
I'm gonna track you down. Just kidding.
Try.
No, I was just wondering because one of like my bucket lists are to backpack Europe and travel all over. I have some family over there as well, like in the Netherlands and Norway.
Mm-hmm. Good. You should do that. Traveling is always the best thing you can do, I think.
Yeah, gotta save money though.
I know.
That's the downside.
But you're probably quite young, aren't you? You look quite young, so you can take advantage of a lot of tickets that are much cheaper in Europe to travel. So there's like packages for train travel where you pay like one price and you have like unlimited trains across Europe and things like that. So depending on the age, especially if you're under 30 or under 35, then usually you get lots of discounts.
I'm about to be there.
There
I'm
you
about to
go.
be 30.
You better go fast.
Yeah, I turned 30 this year.
Yeah. Okay, no, so you should still be able to make use of a lot of these discounts.
Okay. I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah.
I start every podcast pretty much the same way. Ask the same guests, the same questions. And also at the end, I end the same way for every guest.
Hmm.
So to get right into it, my first question is, who are you? And what has shaped your experiences in life that ultimately brought you to what you do now? And at least for you, what you have done and started almost 20 years ago, part of the leadership world. So, yeah.
Big question, isn't it? Multiple in one actually sneaked in there. So who am I? So I'm gonna give the official introduction answer and then maybe the who am I inside as well as outside.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so Christine from Germany, Berlin, originally moved around quite a lot in the world, also traveled a lot. Um, Background is marketing and advertising. Done that before. I thought this is not anymore what I want to do. It wasn't like the this is amazing and it's giving me this yes, I've done something great feeling. It was just a lot of work and not as rewarding. I loved my colleagues. I loved the work itself, let's say, and the clients, but it wasn't fulfilling really. So I trained as a coach and NLP practitioner, neuro linguistic programming, which is pretty much all about communication, and super interesting. You understand how the brain works, how you can communicate better with people, how people can understand you better. But still didn't know what I wanted to do. Just knew I like working with people. I like maybe training people. I like learning from others. And so it just happened, let's say, that I started working with entrepreneurs. And that's what I've done for about 13 years and still do with my Creative Startup Academy, where I support people that want to create basically their own life, not being employed. And decided to add something to what I'm doing by creating my company Let's Talk, where I create communication trainings for bigger companies to, let's say, spark a bit of entrepreneurial spirit in the company. And that means basically they like want to have this startup spirit in their company. So people go to their desk and say, my desk is my business. I love this company that I work for, and I want to give to that as much as I can, etc., etc. So that's what I'm doing with that company. Based in Italy, like I mentioned to you before. And so who am I? I'm a I'm a fun, adventurous, strange, unicorn person, I would say, to answer it in a more broader term. But yeah, so
Wait,
it
why
basically
unicorn?
because I think they're magical. They make people smile. They do good in the
Mm.
world, and they're just like unique as well. So I think every person is unique and everyone is their unicorn in their own way, let's say. But for me, it's about sprinkle a bit of magic into people's lives and also into companies.
So you like to bring magic to people.
Yes,
How do you find that like magic in yourself though?
difficult. It's a lot of work. We all have not so good days as well, so it's not always jumping unicorns on rainbows, eating cupcakes, but it's also sometimes really not so good days if you don't want to be this episode to be explicit, so I'm going to use these words for now.
Oh
Um,
no, I don't care.
so let's say some days can be really shitty days, but it's about, I think, understanding who you are in the first place, which is not easy and I think comes with age. Sounds like this old wise
Mm,
woman. But
you're aging yourself now.
really is that comes with time that you understand what you don't want
Yeah.
in life, and then you start
Mm,
understanding what you want in life. I think it's that way around a lot of times. People don't know who they are and what they want in life, but they know who they are not and what they don't want in life,
mm,
and then that creates them. And we also change. We are different people in different
yeah.
when we grow up. I mean, I'm different now, and I value different things than when I was
Mm,
20, in my 20s or in my 30s. So now I value different things. I like different things, and that's okay, I think. And I'm not like someone who says, "Oh, I don't want to age or anything," because I think every phase in life is beautiful and brings something. But to
yeah.
see that magic and to awaken that magic within you requires a lot of work as well. So I'm doing that on myself. So constant self-development, but also just having a morning routine with some meditation in there,
Yeah.
listening to myself, and being really, let's say, have integrity to what I
Yeah.
stand for. Mm.
No, I feel that. Like, even me, just like last week, I had to cancel like 2 podcasts because, I mean, I'm still like recovering from, I guess, like a sinus infection. Like,
Hmm.
this whole area, I'm still like sniffly. Um, but it's about like taking, like, giving yourself. I always tell people, like, you have to give yourself the grace to, like, just take a break sometimes, you
Yes.
know? And I
And I
could have
think,
like tried to, but
yeah, no, but I think, like you say, if you can't, like they say, perform your best. It doesn't have to be 100%, but at least you
yeah,
should enjoy it, and you should be okay with what you're doing. And if you think, oh, this is not going to be turn out a good podcast, then for sure, yeah, there's reasons. And we're
oh
all
yeah, that's
human.
exactly how I felt. Like I just,
Yeah.
I was out of it, like head, like just head throbbing, like
Yeah.
I couldn't even breathe through my nose. So I'm glad that I gotten a little better over the
Mm.
weekend and I can do this podcast.
Yeah.
But so what ultimately, you said you were ultimately in, you started in marketing and
Hmm.
you weren't feeling that. Uh, and then you decided to go all in into leadership and
Hmm.
leadership development. Um, so my first question in that is, how can we all be better leaders, even if we aren't in leadership roles?
Yes, I think that's a good question, and especially if you're not in leadership roles,
Yeah.
because for me, I mean, one of my books is about leadership skills, and there I describe 3 pillars of leadership, and one is actually the company leading, so you're a leader in a company. One is team
Mm-hmm.
leading, so you have a team around you, and that could even be if you outsource things, so they don't have to be your employees or something. But one is also self-leading, so that's one of the 3 pillars that I talk about in that book, and that is all 3 of them are really, really important and need to be looked at really. So, and if we're talking about self-leading, so because that was your question, that means basically you're not a manager, let's say, of someone else in a company or something. So in there, um, coming back to what we said earlier, so you need to know who you are. You need to be yourself. You need to be authentic. Because if you're trying to be someone else, then that won't feel right after a while. You won't feel happy. You just feel like, oh, you're pretending to be someone that you're not. And I know that they say a
Yeah.
lot of times, um, how do they say that?
Fake
That
it till
you,
you make it.
thank you, exactly. Fake it till you make it. Um, and that's true up to a certain point. But I think
Yeah.
you need to know who you are, and like I said, know who you're not and who you don't want to be, and for sure have that integrity to stand by that. And being yourself will make you also truly happy, and which is one of the things that will make you great in self-leading, let's say. And you can ask yourself questions to figure out actually who you are, maybe for real, by maybe thinking about So in which situations do I feel like I'm 100% myself? I don't have to pretend to be someone else. I don't want to be someone else. But with whom and in which kind of situations do I really feel like I'm 100% myself? And don't get me wrong,
Mm-hmm.
I understand. Okay, you probably act and talk different to me than you talk to maybe a partner, then you talk to parents, then you talk to friends, then you talk to a boss, then
Yeah.
you talk to colleagues. I understand
Yeah.
that we adjust. But the main thing is that we always stay true to ourselves also in these situations. You know, coming back to unicorns, I'm going to make sure I'm going to bring those in from time to time. When I worked for a big company, um,
Yeah.
where it was, let's say, a bit stiff
Mm.
working there, the people were very not outgoing, and it was very quiet, and there were so many rules and how to dress and how to act and what
Yeah.
to say and things like that. So there in these kind of situations can be very difficult, and I have to say I'm a very extrovert person, so I don't have problems expressing myself or saying my opinion if I'm not okay with something. So what I'm telling you now doesn't mean that everyone has to do that, but for me, for example, I then brought my fluffy unicorn. I do have actually a fluffy unicorn um, to
A physical
the
one.
yeah.
A
It's
physical
really
like.
it's a really big one. It's actually over there. I might get it later so that you see him. His name is
Okay.
Gavin, and I brought him to that company, and yeah, some people were very confused why I brought a big fluffy unicorn to work, especially in an environment like that. Some people really embraced it. And then I went around the office, and you know, it's like these cubicles, like really like from the 70s.
Yeah.
So I went around with this
Yeah.
unicorn saying, "Here, Gavin wanted to say hello." And they were like, "What?" And some people were obviously making um, signs that I think I'm mad. Some people laughed. Some people really embraced it. And when I wasn't there, for example, I forgot him there one time. They took him to the pub. They ordered him a drink. So
Oh,
that's really
what?
nice. Yes. So that's really nice. I think you can bring that magic to places where you think there might not be a lot of opportunity
Uh,
there, and be yourself, even though the environment doesn't want you to be too much of a weirdo.
no, I have something on that because I wanted to bring up two different books that
Mhm,
I read about leadership.
mhm,
And the first book, you probably heard of it since you're in the leadership world. It's by Simon Sinek called Leaders Eat Last.
mhm,
And in that book, he talks about the environment and how the environment can shape the culture. But as a leader, uh, he says we can't change people, but we can shape the environment. And it's a leader's responsibility to shape the environment.
yes.
And my question to you is how, as leaders or self leaders, like you're saying, like you brought that part
Mhm.
of you to the company, how do we do that?
Yes. So again, you need to understand yourself, and if you're leading a team, you need to understand the people. Everyone is different. Everyone is motivated by different things. Everyone is stressed by different things. Everyone has their strengths, and everyone has stuff that they could work on. I think a lot of times people spend too much time on saying you need to improve this rather than strengthening the strengths, let's say, as a leader. So you should understand and take the time of understanding every single person in your team and know what they're good at, know what they love doing, and what lights this fire inside them, and to bring to the table all that. Like I said, this desk is my business. I identify with the values, and coming all down to communication. Everything in life, everything, every problem and every solution as well comes down to communication. Always, always, in personal life and in business life. And that can be the hardest part. We do that every day. We speak like we do right now. We write emails. We talk, we meet, We do all these things. We communicate all the time, even without opening
Yeah.
our mouth.
The
But it seems to be
nonverbal ones, yeah.
sometimes, yes, it seems to be sometimes the most difficult part. And that's the part where people have to hook in and say, okay, first I need to understand myself. Then I need to understand the team. And then I need to make sure I create that environment that it feels safe. It feels like they can come up with their own
Yeah.
ideas. They can come back with some feedback, also telling me if they think something goes wrong in the company. So this open-minded environment, feedback culture, company culture, we can throw all of that in. So it's
Yeah.
not like a quick fix thing, but it is starting understanding yourself and the team. And then you can start creating environments where they feel safe to say things and to suggest things. There's actually also a company, you probably know, it's called 3M. They produce the post-it notes and
Oh,
this duct tape.
yeah, they were huge with because I was in the Navy for
Ah.
8 years,
Mm-hmm.
and they're actually going. I think last time I talked to my brother, because he was also in the Navy,
Mm-hmm.
was saying they're going through some sort of lawsuit because they had faulty um, earplugs,
Oh.
and like thousands of people, even using their earplugs and extra ear protection, have experienced hearing loss
Oh.
and uh, extreme cases of like tinnitus. Even I have like, it's like everybody in the Navy gets. It's like if you join the Navy, expect to get tinnitus.
I have that as well.
But
So
yeah,
and I haven't been in the Navy. Yes,
yeah. So they're going through a lawsuit right now.
for
But
that. Yeah.
you can
No,
finish your
but
story.
so you know that company. So apart from that, what they've done within the company for their culture, because we were talking about that, what they did within the culture is that they invented this 15% time program, which means that everyone in the company, no matter which range you are, or if you're a manager or not, you can spend 15% of your paid time to explore your own ideas. So it doesn't always have to be the massive change, you know? You don't have to take a whole company trip to Bali and say, we do a workation for 3 months to be creative and to have this open company culture and things like
Wait,
that. You
did you
can
say
do,
workcation?
yeah, workation, it's called.
What is? I've never
So,
heard of that.
okay, so basically, workation is when usually a company, but you can even do that yourself. Digital nomads use that usually. So they go away with the team, um, where they go to a nice place, which would be a vacation location, but they work there. And usually, if you go with the team, you do like team building activities, and then you do some normal work, and you maybe work on a project because you need to do
Uh,
creative solutions. Because they say, okay, you change the environment, and everything that
no,
we
we had
work.
something similar in the Navy. We had it wasn't called workcations, and they were like mini ones, like a
Mhm,
weekend thing
mhm,
or like a after work type of like team building camaraderie. Like we'd have like a team barbecue, and like we'd have it like on the beach, and
mhm,
we'd play volleyball, and some people will bring food and cook, and we'd all have a jolly time.
mhm. Okay, yeah, that's not a vacation because you didn't do any workshops or you didn't work on a specific company
Okay,
problem,
okay.
did you? So basically, a workation is you get away,
You
but you
actually work.
work. You actually work,
Okay,
but
yeah.
with some fun around fun activities. So it's like a team building thing, but you work either on a specific project or problem that came up,
Okay.
or it's more like you work on your normal stuff, but in a different environment on the beach or whatever. Um,
Yeah.
so you don't have to do that though. You can just create a good environment where you are and with little changes. And it doesn't mean like if you see in the movies where in the Silicon Valley they put all the sofas and PlayStations in place. You don't even have to do that. But maybe you give like a nice room where people can go and sit on a sofa and have a think about some new ideas they have. And they are allowed to do that even. Um, Rather than not being allowed to do that and just say, no, 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 you have to do this, this, this. And I mean,
Have you seen the WeWork movie or show?
no,
I
no.
think you'd like it. It's something that. Have you heard of WeWork,
Yes.
the
Yeah.
company? They did like a. I guess like you know how they do that with a lot of movies. Like they made the Steve Jobs movie, the Facebook movie. They did it. They did the same thing. It's on Apple TV. They did the same thing with WeWork, the company. They showed him like when he didn't have anything, and then uh, he started WeWork, and it became successful, and then like ultimately they like ended up like firing him or something. I never completely finished it, but that was his whole idea, like building an office where you can enjoy coming into it, I guess,
Mhm.
and you could have fun and also work. Um, so yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I'm not sure if they're bankrupt now. I read something where they,
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know, but yeah, but anyway, the idea is that it comes down to understanding yourself, understanding other people, and the communication that you have. Because it's all good, when someone onboards a company and they say, "Oh, these are our values, this is our mission," and then they never work like that. No, they forget about that. It's just in a piece of paper. So you need to live that, and you need to celebrate achievements of people, and you need to communicate with them, and also make them understand what it really means, how they can contribute to maybe the bigger mission of the company. This is how you get their buy-in. They need to actually understand, what am I doing here? Not, oh, I sell this, I buy that, or I do that with the clients. It's more, okay, why am I actually doing this? What's the mission behind it? Am I part of a bigger thing? And can I get excited about this? And if you don't get excited about it, then the manager can try better to get you excited about it, to connect your personal values with the company values, or
Yeah.
you change another job, you choose another job.
No, that's huge with you hear it all the time about Wall Street or like any type of stock exchange, finance. It's like a dog eat dog, like you just climb the ranks and climb the corporate ladder, and there's like no company culture and
No,
like
it's just
happiness. It's
the
like just like
fittest
do your job.
survival, the Darwinism
Yeah.
in there, that no, just the strongest survive.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't like that.
no.
And but going back to what you were saying about understanding yourself, there was also another like excerpt from Leaders Eat Last. He was saying, when you understand your happy chemicals, it can make you a better person and a better leader. And the chemicals, just to quickly go over it, cortisol, understanding your cortisol and stress,
Mhm.
that you need to feel safe in your company. Understanding endorphin and dopamine is a way to understand incentivized effort. Understanding serotonin is understanding that you need to reward good behavior and reward good leadership. And then understanding oxytocin goes back to shaping that healthy organizational culture.
Yes. Exactly. And that, I mean, what
Well,
you just read out is actually also part of my book, that I wrote the happiness formula, which is not connected to companies in that case. But also there I talk about the happy hormones, exactly the ones that you just mentioned. And in the end, you want to be happy. Everyone in this world wants to be happy. I just say that like that. It's a thesis, a theory, let's say, that I'm saying right now. Everyone in the world wants to be happy. And if someone tells me, no, I don't want to be happy, then please reach out to me and I would like to know why. Um, so, like I said, and it's if you are happy and your team is happy, there will be grounds for you as a person to grow, for you as a manager to grow, and for the company to grow. Because happy people, people that buy into the company, uh, will be more productive. And there's also studies showing that if you have good communication practices within your company, there's like 4.5 times more higher talent retention, because otherwise you have just high staff turnover, and an increase of productivity by 30%. So I think that these are numbers that are really important for a company as well, because we were talking about that as well. So it's always about the company. Okay, you need to obviously meet the goals of the company. You need to make the figures, because in the end, a company needs to make profit. Otherwise, or also some turnover, ideally profit, and not just a break even. Otherwise, it can be a hobby, but it's not going to be a company. And if it's a big company, that's what they expect from the people, or they expect that. But if you have happy person sitting there that bought into the company, they will be more productive, they will do their best, and they will stay with you as long as they're happy to be there. And it's important to understand what I also mentioned at the beginning. You're not joyful every day. Okay, there's really shitty days, and there's also things that go wrong, and there are things that are even out of your hand. And I mean, not even talking about what happened in the world a few years back, where everything shuts down and everyone was isolated, and which was really difficult, I think, for everyone, for every business, but also for every single person, if we look at single well-being. But happiness is, let's say, the basis and an underlying lasting feeling that you have. It's not joy. Joy is something that you enjoy because I'm talking to you now, and it brings me joy because it's nice, we have a nice chat. But it's like, okay, in general, I'm a happy person. Okay, and that can boil down to, okay, I've my needs covered. I can eat, I can sleep, I can have a shower, these kind of things. Or it can be other things. So there's different things that make different people happy, but there's also exactly what you mentioned as well, and what I mentioned in my book. There is studies and everything that shows actually what does make people happy and what doesn't make people happy in general, and that's for everyone. And one of these things is being kind to yourself and being kind to others, and that makes a good leader as well. So if you communicate well, and if you understand that other person, and if you understand also, that means you start being interested in the other person as well. You will, because we all say, oh, we don't bring our feelings to work. So if something happened in your life, then of course you're going to bring that to work, because you're a person. You're not a robot. Okay, you can try to ignore it for a bit, but all your state of mind, your mood, everything is influenced by that. Okay, my dad recently passed away. That was awful. I brought that into everything. Well, I stopped working. Okay, I stopped working for a while. I told everyone, sorry, I canceled all my meetings. And I have to say, my network was so amazing that everyone said, if there's anything I can do let me know. If you need anything in your business taken on, I'll do that for you, which is lovely. And that's the same. I mean, if someone comes to work with something and the manager doesn't know what's happening in their life, doesn't mean you have to explain everything that happens in your life because you had a fight with your partner last night or whatever. Yeah. But if something really difficult happened, when you have an open company culture, then that person will come to you, to a manager, and say, look, this is what happened to me, and I want you to know. And that's exactly what happened with me as well at work a few years back, when I was misdiagnosed, luckily, in that case with a brain tumor. But I did not tell anyone that at work. But I could feel how that obviously influenced me at work. I was so stressed, and I was snapping at people and things. And my manager took me in and said, look, Christine, what's happening? And then I said, well, this is what happened about 3 days ago. And she was like, oh my God, and really good manager. But if I would have gone before to that person, to the manager, saying this is what happened, then the manager can adjust accordingly and support that person. But you need to create that company culture that people feel safe to come to you with these kind of things.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say. It just goes right back to that understanding that wherever you're working, because I've had leaders like that in the past where I just didn't feel comfortable. They like, especially when you're in the military, the leadership style more often than not is just do as you're told. So it's kind of shitty sometimes
Mm.
when you have to listen to people that you don't particularly get along with, and they just say shut up and do it. Like, um,
Yeah.
but I 100% agree. There's times where like that, like I had to deal with something, maybe it was personal or family related, and I didn't feel comfortable going to my
Mm.
direct leader because they give off a intimidating,
Mm.
uh, what's the word? Non approachable, unapproachable
Yeah.
vibe. And I think that's not a quality of a good leader. I think a quality of a good leader, you should be approachable. You shouldn't be intimidating all the time.
Yes.
And that's something like coming from the military. But
Yeah,
uh,
I can see how that might be very difficult to find that balance,
mhm,
but it is possible, of course, because in the end we're all humans, okay? So if someone feels that they can't approach someone because that person gives out that vibe, don't talk to me, do as you say. Even in the military, that's not appropriate and a good leader, in my opinion. Okay, there might be other opinions out there. Um, and I think also if you look at it from the perspective though of the person that's led by someone like that, also that person needs to understand the leader better because you usually people are managers and probably especially also obviously in the navy or military, let's say, are under extreme pressure for achieving certain unreachable goals that they were given. And but they don't know how to translate that in a good way to motivate the team, and encourage the team, but they put fear out. And that's another thing, isn't it? There's like two ways to motivate someone. One is the fear, and one is encouragement, let's say. And fear will always work faster and has a bigger impact than encouragement. That's a fact. That's not saying that doesn't mean that I support that. I would always go the encouragement route. But we all know if we're in a state of fear, so even fear of losing life or fear of something, if we look at extreme situations, we will act, we will be put into action. But if someone tells you, oh yeah, you can have a nice evening out tomorrow and I pay all your drinks, if that's what someone likes to do, then oh yeah, that's nice. But you won't be as in, if you don't do that, I'm gonna kill you tomorrow. This is not what I'm talking about. No, is hopefully no one says that at work. But you see, fear is always a bigger motivator, but people shouldn't use it really. People should use the encouragement route. However, sometimes people just don't know how to. They don't know how to because they have so much pressure that they think, I'm gonna lose the job. I can't support my family or whatever is going on in their lives, that other people in the team don't know. So again, also there, I would encourage people to have a bit of an understanding for those leaders. Not saying that this is a good thing, because they probably will not come to you and say, you know what, I was diagnosed with a brain tumor yesterday. They will not go to their team and say that. Maybe they should, okay? But of course, you should be able to go to your manager and say that. But the other way around doesn't work so much. So there is a bit of a balance act there and a bit of an understanding gap on both sides, that's difficult to close, but not impossible.
yeah. Um, so it's just I guess it goes on both sides then because the but then you have to understand your leader and that they might be going through something that causes them a lot of stress
Mm-hmm.
and pressure. Is there any way for the I guess the subordinate or the person under
Mm-hmm.
them, is there any way that we can do that? Like, is there any way we can practice understanding them better?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Yeah.
Yeah. I think, yes, of course. So again, depends on the situation of the setup and things like that. Because if you have that open communication and you feel you can go with every problem to your manager, then it might be a
Mm,
bit easier because you could say, look, I just wanted to let you know, I feel very safe and I feel very good in this company, and I feel that I can come to you with anything, any feedback, any problems, any good things. I just want you to know that I understand that you also might go through phases in life and also at work,
mm,
that it's not always easy for you to manage us. So if there's anything I can do to support you in the way I work, or maybe communicate and support in any kind of way, do let me know. Okay, but that might be sometimes difficult to say that really in an environment where
mm,
you feel like you can say that. I have been working in a company where it was like this, where it all felt like a family, which can be also dangerous
mm.
because you can get
Yeah.
too snappy sometimes and say, it can be a bit too rough then with the people because you think it's okay because it's family, it's friends kind of style, but it's not because it's colleagues. So
It's still, yeah, still
it really
professional
is a bad.
setting.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So another way, if the environment is not so open, is just like um, obviously always talking in private, not in front of other people. So that's
Yeah.
obviously the first thing. And then you would say maybe something like, I just wanted to let you know if there's anything I can do better. Okay, it doesn't mean that you do
Mm-hmm.
it to support you in your role with you achieving the company goals. Please do let me know because I know we're sitting all in the same boat and want to reach something together. Um, that might be something that can be, but I think just even understanding without even communicating, just have that
Just
understanding.
trying to
Okay,
understand more. Yeah.
yeah, then that gives you, that means that you take it less personal. There's always some really bad leaders that go very personal and on purpose as well because they're assholes. However, so they're probably then there's no point talking. But if you really feel
Yeah.
that this is a good person that you also want to support, you can say something like that. Because in the
Yeah,
end, everyone is a
there's
person.
narcissistic leaders out there.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, so there's another book that I read about leadership. And it's funny because it's from Jocko Willink. He's an ex-Navy SEAL, and he says leadership can basically be boiled down to like two fundamental concepts.
Mhm.
The first one is having extreme ownership. He also wrote a book about that and taking accountability, but that includes ownership of your team and your subordinates under you, and taking ownership for all the mistakes that you make, even if you don't directly make them yourself. And then even going as far as having preemptive ownership, or to prevent problems whenever possible and to help mitigate them even when unexpected events occur. And then the second part is you have to understand the dichotomy of being a leader, and that there's going to be inevitable circumstances that contradict each other. Basically, you're going to be pulled in different directions that you may not always agree with, and
Mhm.
you have to better understand that as a leader.
And you have to deal with them.
Yeah.
That's the point, isn't it? And that is where is really these are like highly skilled leaders, let's say, that can deal with all kind of situations. That
Yeah.
stand up is really important to admit when you've done something wrong and not blame someone else, especially if it was your fault. And I think that is not only for leaders but also for everyone else that works. Um, but yes, because you are responsible for the team, and that means if someone in the team makes a mistake, it's ultimately you're going to be blamed. If we're looking at specific hierarchies, yeah. So there's flatter hierarchies in other companies than other ones. If you're looking at the bigger companies, then there's always someone above that will then blame that person, because that person won't go to the subordinate, let's say, and say it was you. He will go to that manager and say it was someone in your team, so ultimately it's your fault. And sometimes it is even true that someone in the team made a mistake, but it could have been prevented by the leader, by putting certain things in place, by communicating better, by briefing someone better, whatever that is, whatever the situation is. And that's where it comes to, okay, owning that and say, yeah, I can see that. Let's see what we can do. What happened? How can we prevent that in the future? And then really look at that why, because maybe it might be miscommunication that happened, or whatever it is. And then the second part, where you sometimes have to do things that you don't agree with, I think that's really difficult, and it really depends on how much you disagree, because we all should have that integrity. So we all know what we value, what our values, what's important to us, what do we for sure will never ever support. And if that situation arises, is it time to speak up and change and leave the company even? So that might be a bigger step, because if you forced to do something that really goes against you and what you stand for, then that won't go long for a long time. You will stop being motivated. You will stop putting in your best, because you say, okay, I'm just going to do it so they don't fire me, but I'm not really give it my all, and things like that. So I think that's really difficult situation, and you need to look at the grade of how bad it is, that it goes against you.
Yeah, I think the first thing that comes to my mind when dealing with that, like something you disagree with, yeah, you have to understand your values, obviously, and then you have to also create those boundaries. Like,
Yes.
it's kind of like a relationship. Like, what are your non-negotiables?
Yeah.
Uh, I think that's what applies here. Is whenever you're faced with a difficult decision and it doesn't align with your values, what is your non-negotiable in that you may have to, like you said, you might just have to leave the company because it doesn't align with your values long term. And
Mm.
if it keeps happening, you can't just you can't just put up with it, I
No.
guess.
Exactly. And you can look, because usually in big companies there's always someone above. So if it doesn't work, so find that open communication with your next upper person, let's say in the hierarchy, and talk to them and say, look, I really disagree with that. Bring forward some reasons why. And also maybe why it might not be good for the company, because then that might convince them anyway to change the course. But if that person, it was maybe that person's idea to do that, then obviously that's difficult. You can still try that open conversation, and you should never go behind someone's back. So go to that person and say and try. And if that didn't work, you go to the next one up and say, look, I talked to him or her, didn't work. This is really going against me. I would like to change team, change project, change company, because especially in a big company, you probably might be able to change things around if it's just that person. But maybe this specific person then sees, okay, that really doesn't is no good. So they will talk to that other person, and they will for sure change. Mm,
Okay, so I have two more questions
yes.
before we move on. Um, I guess the first question is, what is the whole disc profile thing, and does it really matter when you, I guess, understand your disc profile?
Mhm. Very good question. Um, I first thing I would like to say is that there's obviously lots of profiling tools out there, and no one who takes this should take this and say, "This is me, and now I'm in a box, and that's it." It's not about this, and this is a nice thing about DISC as well, and other profiles as well. But the way I basically did my whole certification in and things like that, it's called DISC Flex, because they modernized that model a bit more, um, where it's about, okay, you understand a bit more about yourself, and then you can see if you want to dial something up and dial something down, but I'm going to explain a bit more. So disc profiling is really like everything else. You go through some questions and you answer them in the way you see yourself. Okay, so this is the first thing really to understand. The way you see yourself might not be the way other people see you. So it's always a subjective result that you're getting because you're answering questions that you think, yeah, that's me. That's what I think. What's really interesting when I did my profile is that there was an outcome, and then I invited external people to anonymously respond to those questions describing me. So you ask family, friends, and colleagues, teammates, previous colleagues, whatever, in my case, and said, look, would you be willing to fill this in? And they came out with the different results to than it was for me. So that's the first thing I think to understand. It's more for self-awareness a bit. It's quite accurate though. And it's basically 4 things. So there's 4 letters, DISC, okay, which stand for dominance. And those names mean different things for everyone. So I'm going to go through those in a second as well. So dominance, influence, steadiness, and compliance. Okay. And again, you might be at the end when you do that profiling, you have like a bar chart where you see, okay, out of 100, what's your score for this S, or what's your score for that I, or what's your score for that D. But what they also do is they give you a pie chart where they put that all in proportion, because they say you're not a C or an I or a D. You're not defined by one letter, you're all of them. But you might react in certain situations more like a C, or you're more a D. So what that means, if I go just quickly through those, because it's really fascinating and interesting, and then I come back to that if it matters to know. Okay, so we have the D in this, which I said stands for dominance, and what that means. And again, this is more to keep it a bit more general at that moment, and then it's drilling down into that specific person. So it gives you always an overview of your strengths, let's call them weaknesses, motivators, stresses, and what your focus is. Okay, so for people who have a high D, they're very efficient, they like deadlines and assertiveness. So they really want someone. Also, if you then have a manager and you are more a D, that manager should know, okay, you get deadlines, they're very assertive, no, you should do it that way, and so on. They're really motivated by results, authority, multitasking, and some challenges. So if you know that as a manager, you can motivate that person. What stresses them is too many rules and being confined by details. Okay, so if someone is a high D and you need to do a super detailed Excel sheet, that's probably stressing them out like nothing else, like a lot of people, like including myself. But that's really interesting. And then they're really determined people, ambitious, and they're usually visionaries. Okay, we have the I, which is influence. And these are people who are really good in communication. They're like really good in cooperations and negotiations, these kind of things. But they're often very emotional, okay? And they lack also attention to detail usually. They like acceptance, they like praise and teamwork. So these are, if you know you have people in that team, and ideally you have one of each, because everyone is everything anyway, like I said, but maybe a higher I. So they are really good at teamwork, and they like always being and working out together. They don't like working by themselves. It's stressing them out. If they're isolated, it's stressing them out. And making decisions by themselves can also stress them. We have the C, which the S, sorry, which is steadiness. And they're usually people that are good in relationship building, trustworthy, reliable, very logic people. That means they're resistant to change sometimes. So you need to, if there's some change going on in the company, you need to work with them in a different way than other people that jump on to change. They like clear responsibilities, a steady pace of a project, for example, and the recognition. What's stressing is, like I said, is really quick changes and if the feedback is too harsh. Okay. And then we come into the C, which is compliance. So they're very structured people. They like planning, analyzing information. They're motivated by something being really organized, clear guidelines, conflict-free environment, let's say. What they don't like is a lack of details, and if there's unclear expectations. So again, they don't know what they're working for. What do you expect from me? They often lack the bigger picture, and they're sometimes a bit stubborn. Okay, so this is like the fast overview of the DISC model. Now, if you know what's your higher percentage and other ones and not, what that means is exactly what I mentioned. So for self-leading, or if you have someone who's leading you and who understands yourself, understands you, then they can work with that. Okay, so they can make sure they create that environment so that they all of a sudden have tools of how to create this open environment, okay, and how to motivate you. So if they know you want details, they're going to give you a more detailed plan. If you are someone who just like the bigger picture and do your own thing, maybe they just give you some pointers. If you're someone who likes to work in a team and hates to work in isolation, the good leader will make sure you always work in a team and you never have to take decisions, let's say, by yourself. I mean, obviously, we all should do that. It can really help to understand yourself and others better, which it all comes down to, like we said at the beginning. And again, this might change over time. So again, they also say it's really worth reviewing this, maybe doing this assessment a few times and getting other people to do it for you because they see you in a different way than you might see yourself.
Is there anywhere we can do it?
Yeah, there's multiple websites up there. I have done mine on, let me tell you now. So the one where I did my certification in and where you can also do the assessment as like a person and you don't want to take this forward otherwise is indabaglobal.com. They called indabaglobal.com. But if you Google Disc Flex, because they're the only ones that have that name basically, then you find them. But you can also do other ones. Now what they did, what's really interesting is that they say you can flex your behavior. Okay, so let's say I'm aware, so it's about self-awareness as well. So you can see, okay, I reacted like this because of that. So what activities can I do and how can I do things to maybe, so I'm a high C, okay, in my profile. So that compliance, I like structure. I don't like change. Even though I moved around so much in my life, that's different. But I really, you can also ask my fiance, if we change a plan that we made in the morning, it drives me mental. Even if we eat something else that we makes me sound like a maniac.
I'm kind of the same. I like, I don't think I've ever done, I might have, I forget, but I'm the same. I like to, I mean, I'm getting better with it though. Like, especially being a podcaster sometimes, you know, like people cancel last minute. Like I've had like 3 people over the last like 3 weeks, the same people, they keep canceling last minute. It's like they'll send me an email or on the pod match like an hour before the podcast and they're like, oh, like something came up, and it's like, yeah, it's when that happened the first time, I was like, oh man, like what? But now it's like you get used to it. But I like structure too.
Yes, and there's nothing wrong with it. So that's another thing to understand. There's no right or wrong. So if you're a high D, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just the way you are. Everyone is great the way they are. But if we say we want to be able to be open to more change, for example. So I always had a very strict morning routine as well. I'm very strict with myself. So I get up at 6 o'clock and then I do 2 hours and I've done pretty much always the same things. Okay, so I've done like
what does it look like? Yeah.
So it did look like, and that's the whole point. So I might have done some
Yeah.
posture stretching kind of thing, some face yoga, some language learning
Face
is always
yoga.
face yoga. Why do you think I still look so young?
Uh,
Um,
wait,
then,
can you give me an example of face yoga?
but do this for example. So you basically
No, that's good for your sinuses.
yes
I was
also,
I was
and it's,
I was doing that like this.
yeah,
I was doing that and
that's very good.
it really helps open up your
Yeah, and it's really good
airways.
for the dark circle under the eyes and things like that because it
Mm.
takes out the swelling of your face. Okay,
Well,
so yeah,
sometimes I also oh, sorry to cut you off.
no, no, yeah,
Some
please go.
sometimes I also like I don't practice face yoga, but sometimes I do like uh I guess when I do like stretch my face out, if there's some sort of like alleviation. Like I'll like just like
Mm-hmm.
make like like open faces and like scrunchy faces. And it's like doing something about that like helps alleviate like
Yes. For sure,
I
and
don't
you
know.
just do what feels good. You don't have to do a course or whatever, okay? And you
Yeah.
don't need to call it face yoga, but it's just to loosen up some muscles. I mean, always if we think too much, we do that, or we
Hmm.
pull them up, and that is tensioning up also everything around you. So yeah, I used to do that. Then there's language learning in there. Then there's a workout in there, like a physical exercise, meditation, some writing, things like that. So I did that because I knew, first of all, it helps me
Hmm.
to wake up because I need a bit of time to wake up. But second of all, I really felt accomplished before I even start my working day, and I really need that.
Hmm. Yeah.
What I've done though now, after I took that certification and also after my profiling, I wanted to open up more to change, okay, even small things.
Yeah.
So what I've done is I wake up in the morning, same time, and then I say, what do I want to do now? So I'm trying to listen a bit
Hmm.
to my gut as well and think, what is it really that I want to do now? Do I want to meditate? No. Okay, I don't meditate today. Huh, okay, maybe I do some coloring in. The other day I did some coloring in. The other day I just did language stuff. The other day I did a workout. The other day I was doing nothing. I was stretching, I think, for 1 hour. It felt so good because in
Oh,
that
that's good.
moment it felt what I
Yeah.
wanted to do. Um, and I think
Yeah.
that can help, and this is what this profile helps you to do and gives you really also, okay, if you want to dial up your eye, this is
Hmm.
what you can do. You can go into public speaking because that means you communicate more with people. If you, and so on. So I think it's really fascinating
Yeah.
and useful.
I did have a question. So
Mhm.
what if we work by ourselves?
Yeah,
Like me personally,
like
all
myself
this
as
I
well.
do. Yeah, like what does leadership uh I guess have to deal with when you're just working for yourself?
Well, that's where the self-leading comes in, isn't it? Because you
Ah, yeah.
need to have a bit of a, let's say, routine. You need discipline because otherwise you never get anything done. So if we're always just like, oh, do I feel like putting my tax account together today? No. Well, at some point you have to. Okay, these are things that come with that. So
Yeah.
especially if you work for yourself, there's always things that you don't like to do. So either
Yeah.
you're happy and lucky to outsource things, maybe you do them by yourself because you think, okay, I'm going to do that anyway because I have to do that, then that's good. But again, understanding who you are and what you like doing, what you don't like doing helps you. Being disciplined with yourself. And that means also looking after yourself, which is what we most likely forget, I would say. Most entrepreneurs I've worked with and myself, having been very close to a burnout, um, is that we never switch off because we love what we do. And it's okay to work in the evening. It's okay if we work on the weekend because it doesn't feel like work. This quote I hate so much, where they say, if you do something that you love, you never work a day in your life. And I tell you why I don't like it, because it's super dangerous. It's work, and you should understand that. And you will burn out slowly without realizing until it's too late if you take this too hard. So I don't like when people do that. Of course, it's good to enjoy what you do, but that's also if you're employed, not just self-employed, you should enjoy what you're doing. And that's obviously, if you work in a company, it's their task to create that environment that you really like it. But if you're working for yourself, you need to create that environment. And I think it's really important to understand this is your business, and then you have another life outside of that, as if you would be employed. And it's okay to have ideas in the shower, like they say. I never had an idea in the shower, but I think it's more a synonym for outside of work, yeah. Because I know
Yeah.
when I'm on holiday and I'm lying on the beach and I'm taking a little nap, I wake up, I might have so many ideas. I write them down because I don't want to forget them,
Yeah.
but I don't act on them because I stop myself and say, I'm on holiday and I need this. I need to recharge. I
Yeah.
finish my working day at 5, my time. First of all, I have a partner that finishes at 5, so this way I can spend time with that person. But also, I think it's really good for me to make that switch. Okay, I'm not working. And most entrepreneurs miss that. They do not take enough care of themselves. They don't have a separate life. They say, no, it's all one thing because this is my life. I understand that, but you should never do
Yeah.
that. You should have hobbies that have nothing to do with your business. You should go on holiday without checking your emails if you can. Set something up. I mean, there's autoresponders. Maybe you have someone who can fill in and just read your emails whilst you're away and then tells you if there's something super urgent, and then you can deal with things. I understand all of
Yeah.
that. But please take care of yourself and switch off. And this is also what managers actually have a problem with, this switching off thing. Yeah, because they can't let go because they are under so much pressure. And we put ourselves as entrepreneurs under so much pressure. This is fear of missing out, as in either someone who markets to us, oh, there's another product, another online course I need to do.
Yeah.
Or I don't know if I can pay my rent next month. I had that when I was living in the beginnings, when I was living in the UK as well, where everything is also extremely expensive. But it's like, okay, I actually don't know how I'm gonna pay my rent next year. So there's a lot of pressure, and then you just more and more and more. But you
And
probably
then
have
the
to
thing
work
that
that
comes to
thing.
me
Hmm.
is when I get in those states is like, oh, like I could have done this instead of watch Netflix
Hmm. Hmm.
or play my game or something. Like
Yeah.
I could have done this. But I think it just goes back to like the boundaries and discipline
Hmm.
and having those
Yes.
strict boundaries and disciplines, because you do need rest besides work 24/7. Somebody that comes to my mind is Elon Musk,
Hmm.
because he's like infamous for that. Like his whole life is just work. And it's like, but then I also think uh he has his modes where he switches off too, though. He's I was listening to a podcast and he said, yeah, like I spent pretty much like an entire weekend straight um playing what was that damn game? This is like new online game. I think it's called Diablo. He said, yeah, like there was a weekend where I just like straight like 24 hours like just playing that game and just getting lost like in that world.
Hmm.
And I think there's something like good about that. It's like you like it, that was him switching off from uh the crazy amount of work he does.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. So we all need to switch off. And another thing, if we're talking about self-leading and working for ourselves, is motivation. No? Motivation is
Mm,
can be so difficult. And again, if you do a profiling, for example, with this or any other one, where you understand what's motivating you, but you don't even need to do the profiling. You can just answer some question. You can say, what has really motivated me if I do something with enthusiasm? Why is that? What's motivating me about it? Is it the outcome? Is it because I'm doing something good? Is it something because I'm something that I'm good at? Because there's all these different states as well, and being in flow and all these things. But think about the motivation. What's motivating you really, and why? I mean, Simon Sinek, start with the why, blah blah blah, all these things.
yeah.
But it is really, really is the motivator that we need, because we don't have someone else who's motivating us. We don't. We as
Mm,
in entrepreneurs, if we work for ourselves, there's no one saying, "Way, well done, you," and gives you a hug. And especially, I mean, this is where a network comes in. Okay, your family, friends, okay. If they're not entrepreneurial, they will never understand what you're going through, and that's fine, because they're there for other things. If you need a shoulder to cry on, if you need to love, and even if you're talking about a problem that you might have that they won't understand, but just talking about it helps sometimes. But we
yeah.
do not have those motivators, and we we need everyone. Everyone needs external motivation, let's say. Okay, we can't
Yeah.
always just motivate ourselves. Okay, we can
Mm,
try, and we should most of the time. I would recommend for every entrepreneur to create a feedback scrapbook, and that can
mm,
be online, that can be offline, that can be in a real book, whatever you want. Every time someone gives you a good feedback for something you've done in your business, print that out, glue that onto your vision board, into your feedback scrapbook, or take a screenshot and put that somewhere in a folder, or whichever, write it down by hand, whatever you want to do. Because if you don't feel motivated, you just go through that and see, okay, I do have actually an impact. It really matters what I'm doing, because that can be sometimes difficult, because people also don't give a lot of feedback if they feel it's not necessary. So that comes back also,
mm.
same with leading. It's easy to point out mistakes, and most managers, unfortunately, don't point out often enough if something went well. And that's the same with us, and that's the same with feedback of people. I mean, if you buy something on Amazon, do you always leave a review if you like the product or the book?
No, I
Yeah.
don't.
So, but you buy because of the reviews. So
Mm,
you see, when I started self-publishing my first book, I understood how important it is to leave a review if I read a book. I've never, ever left a
yeah.
review for a book that I've read.
Yeah.
And now I understand, because I buy that book because I read through the reviews. I buy that specific product and decided for this one because it had the most reviews that said this is great.
Mm,
Um,
yeah.
so again, the psychology behind that, people don't say you've done a great job as much. Okay, so
It's
if
like
we,
do that with yourself, kind of.
yeah,
Kind of
yeah,
like do that
exactly.
for
But
yourself. Yeah.
if they do that, so people to me said actually into my face, but Christine, I don't think I need to tell you how great I think you are, because you seem so confident and you know what you're doing. Yeah, but tell me, tell me, because also me, I need to hear this. But this is, people
Yeah.
see you and they think he or she or they, or all the pronouns now, um, know. No, this person knows that this person knows what they're doing. They're really good at it. They really seem really motivated. So I don't need to tell them how great I think they are. But you should. You should.
Yeah,
Because
I think it's just human nature.
hmm,
I think it just goes back to human nature, and yes, it's you shouldn't have to always rely on external validation to get you motivated, to get you out of bed, to
no.
pursue your purpose or drive or ambitions. But every once in a while, it's nice
Yes.
to
It
hear that
helps.
you're doing it helps keep you on track. Like if you've
Yes.
fallen off, like let's say you're on track, you motivate yourself, and maybe you're like a screw is loose or something, it helps reaffirm that screw. It helps
Yes,
like weld it back into place
that's well said.
when
Yes.
when you don't.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
one other thing I think everyone can do to be a bit more self-motivated as an entrepreneur is really celebrate when you achieve something. Setting goals, blah, blah, blah. Yes, long term,
Mm,
short term, whatever. But celebrate when you've done something well. I was really bad at that. Never
yeah,
even celebrated well that I published my first book. By now I have over 20 out, but it's
that's
like,
crazy.
yeah, but I'm not jumping up and down the room and say, "Great, Christine, you've done extremely well. Wow, you've published something there, or you've done this," or even smaller things. It doesn't have to be something big like that. But we should really do that. So what I started doing many years back, that I created like a video at the end of the year for myself and also for other people to see, which is about two,
Yeah.
3 minutes with everything I've done that year. And when I see that, I'm like, okay, well done. And this is like my celebration. But I still struggle with celebrating in between with little things. I try to remind myself, and that's what I'm still working on. But that's what everyone can do for themselves to keep motivated. Celebrate. And celebration means taking some time off, going out with friends for dinner, go and dance, go and buy something that you want, go on holiday, whatever, small or big, take a bath, okay? You define what you want to do to celebrate and say, well done, Christine, or well
Whatever that
done,
is
fill
for
in the
you.
blank.
Yeah.
And that will
I mean,
keep you
I think you're
motivated.
doing a good job doing what you're
Mhm.
doing.
Thank you. There you go. I like that. Thank you. That felt like a warm hug. You need that. Thank you. Likewise, likewise. Thank you. Yeah.
But uh, I know we're getting close to time,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I need to lead into my conclusion. But there is one thing, if you can quickly cover it,
Yes.
before we move on, that we didn't cover,
Mm-hmm.
is micromanaging. If you can like sum it up, like
Okay. Yeah. No, no
yeah,
problem. Sum that up in 1 minute for you. So
yeah.
most managers that micromanage, the problem is that they don't trust the people that could do the job in a different way, but come to the same result. So it's that pressure that managers have and the lack of trust that they have towards the team, and that problem of letting go. Because we want to do the way we want to do it, and it's probably the most efficient way, and it will be done. But I tell you what, if you are able to trust that person to do it in their way to get there in the end as well, it will lead to the same result, and you don't have to micromanage.
No, I personally had to deal with this my last job.
Mhm.
I used to work at GNC, a nutrition shop, and vitamin shop,
Mhm.
and I would always. It was partly one of the reasons why I quit, because my boss was like a boomer, just set in his ways, didn't like any bit of change. Like he just had to have things, and he had a little
Mhm.
bit of OCD. Is that what it's
Mhm.
called?
Mhm.
Where it just everything had to be a certain way, and I just couldn't deal with that anymore to the point where I just quit.
Yeah, there you go. Leadership training for him would be good. But they need to be,
Yeah.
you know what, everyone who's doing some training on that because the company wants them to, it might not have the effect. They need to be motivated enough to want to do that training, and to implement that change, because otherwise it's useless as well.
Well, Christine, um, I'm glad that you've came on here, but I end every podcast the same way.
Mm-hmm.
So we play a game, and then I
Okay.
ask, and I ask you the 5 final questions.
Mm-hmm.
So the game is basically a game of stories. There's a prompt card, and there's a story card. It's all
Okay.
randomized. I don't pre-pick them out. So The prompt card is I've always been embarrassed about. And then the story card is, this is interesting. I've always been embarrassed about something close to your heart. So
Mhm.
something, I guess, that means a lot to you. You've been embarrassed about something. Anything comes to mind? Been embarrassed about something close to you.
No, I think maybe I have been, not anymore, where I have wanted to start a new company and a new project, and it didn't work out. So it
Hmm.
was really difficult for me. And I felt a bit embarrassed and thought maybe it's me, but I know it's not. It wasn't. Really
Hmm.
wasn't me. Um, but because it was already also public and I had quite a lot of traction for that, then I had to say, nope, I'm not doing that anymore. It's not working. So that
Yeah.
can be sometimes a bit difficult. Embarrassing is not a word that I would use because I would say I've never used that word in my life. I'm not really
You don't
embarrassed by
ever feel
anything.
embarrassed?
No, never.
What do you
I
feel instead of embarrassment?
might feel a bit nervous or I might feel a bit disappointed or something. But I'm
Yeah.
never, because I'm someone that understands that I
I
don't
think
know
that's good.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's actually good to not be embarrassed because
Mm.
when you're not really embarrassed, you're comfortable in who you are.
Yeah, because no one
Cuz
knows
you're only
everything.
yeah, you're only embarrassed because you only feel embarrassment when you're afraid or feel shameful of other people's opinions of how you show up. So
Mm.
you're like, "Oh, I'm embarrassed because I look like a fool or I like."
Yeah, a
But
lot
when
of
you're
times it has
comfortable
to
in
do,
yourself,
yeah, a lot
yeah.
has to do with not knowing the answer to a question that someone asks you. And
Hmm.
that might be in a personal setting, in a professional setting, it might be in a workshop, because you feel, especially in a workshop, a lot of people have that. Let's say you run a workshop for a company and they ask you something and you don't have the answer. I don't have a problem saying, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know everything. Do you know everything? No.
No,
So let's find out together. Or I don't answer in that way, but I'm just saying that's a lot of times when people get embarrassed. Mm.
no, I'm the same way. I like to position myself as like the least intelligent in the room because I always have something to learn. I don't like I'll speak my mind,
Mm.
but I'm open to feedback
Mm.
always.
I think there's a lot
And
of ego work in there as well. If the bigger the ego, the
yeah,
more you can feel maybe also embarrassed because you think you should know everything,
you should
and
know,
you
yeah.
and but Mm.
You have to let that go. But the first question of the final questions is what is your biggest regret?
Don't have one. Another word that I don't use. Not embarrassment, not
Okay,
regret. Really.
the the counterpart to that, if somebody doesn't have any regrets, is because that's common. What's your biggest failure?
Very difficult for me because entrepreneurial mindset, failure is not failure, it's learning something. Maybe another company that I worked for my own company, 3 years I put in, gave up everything to do that and it didn't work out. Maybe you can see that as a failure if someone wants to define that as a failure. I learned a lot. I've met incredible
Yeah,
people, made me move
just
around Europe.
something that like really, I guess, you felt hurt about. Um,
It's
I
about
guess it
this
doesn't
letting
have to be
go.
a failure. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. If you let go of things, it's not a failure. And if you've learned something, it's not a failure.
Nah, we have the same
Difficult.
mindset on that one. I'd have to agree with that. Second question is who or what has made the biggest impact in your life that makes you who you are?
My mom.
Your mom?
Hmm.
Why?
Because she's Superwoman for me. She has a
She's
she
a
has a
unicorn?
she's a unicorn for sure. She shaped. We are all shaped by so many things. We can talk about it for one episode if we want to. What shapes us and who shapes us. But
Yeah.
um, probably my mom, yes, because she always supported me in everything. Never pushed me into anything that I didn't want to do. As in, I did 3 years worth of internship unpaid after I finished school to find out what
Oh,
I don't
wow.
want to do. And that was
Yeah.
okay with her because she wanted me to find the thing that I wanted to do and supported
Mm,
me through all that. She supports me now, even though she might not understand why I'm doing things and why I do things that are more complicated than being just employed. Um,
yeah.
she has always supported me financially, emotionally, and everything. Um, Gave me the discipline that I need now. She went through extremely tough times in her life and was still the best mom.
Yeah. That's good. I'm glad you had a good mom. That's good. I'm glad you had a good. What is hard way?
Taking care of myself. So, like I mentioned, I was very close to a burnout. I've tinnitus for over 20 years, which but in my case comes from stress. I was diagnosed with a brain tumor in that year. It was just that had to push me, and unfortunately for most people it's that way. Something really bad has to happen, either a diagnosis like that, which was a misdiagnosis luckily, or someone dying or some illness
Like a
or
rock
whatever.
bottom moment. Yeah.
That rock bottom moment before you make a change. And I had to learn it that way, to make that change and to take care of myself and to create that two lives, business and personal life, let's say, like I mentioned.
Yeah. That's good. Next question is, what would you want to experience in life if you had all the time and all the money in the world?
I would like to see all the rest of the world that I haven't seen yet. Really, because I've seen so many places, so many beautiful places. I think traveling is the best thing ever that anyone can do. You learn the most when you do that.
Yeah.
You be much more open-minded.
Mm-hmm.
You will be humbler, more humble,
Humbled.
humbled.
Humbled. Yeah.
Humbled by the things you see. It puts things into perspective. The things that are dramatic for you right now will not be dramatic for you anymore. It just
Yeah.
enriches the life the most. And I've not seen so many things in the world like everyone else, but I've seen quite a lot.
What's on the top of your list to go?
Some parts in Europe probably. Maybe oh, I've been there. Wait, I would hmm. I would like to see maybe some Antarctica.
Oh, really?
I know there's
That's
not
like the
much
most
there.
unexplored. Well, there's so many conspiracy theories about
I know
Antarctica.
it doesn't exist and things like that. That's maybe one of the reasons why I want to see it.
You'd have to like bring a bunch of layers and
That's okay.
it'd be hard.
If
It'd
you're
be hard to.
rich, but you know, if you have the money, it's not a problem. I get jackets
True.
made for me.
No, true. That's something I like to remind myself of. It's like there's a quote. It's like, if you have a problem that can be solved by money, it's not a problem.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
And the last question is there any last thing you'd like to share that we maybe didn't cover that you would like to resonate with the audience?
No, maybe just that life lesson. Don't wait for the rock bottom moment before you prioritize your life and your well-being. Do that change right now because you can. You can, no matter what you think you can't do, you can, and you can do little changes that will have a great impact. and make sure you spend enough time with your loved ones, because at some point they're not there anymore.
100%. Well, thank you, Christine. Michaelis, is there anywhere you'd like people to go follow you?
If they want, I'm most active on LinkedIn, actually. So if you go to LinkedIn /in and then /Christine the coach, you know, the URL www.linkedin.com/in/Christine the coach, you will find me.
Go check her out, everybody. And as always, stay curious and keep going. You got this.
Thank you.
Peace.